So what's nice about this session is we have four very different operators, and I'm going to introduce them in order of the glamour of their location. So on my left, we have Fabian Bello from Miami. Fabian, how's business in Miami? So we'll do Miami first, glamorous global hub. How is Miami? How's business?
Miami is just where I live. We operate out of Boca Raton, and we have offices both there and in Teterboro. So most of our fleet goes in and out of Teterboro and all over the world. We're predominantly a long-range charter operator, Gulfstreams. We have 12 of them, plus a Falcon 2000 and a Hawker 4000. And then we also own Long-Tail Aviation, which has a BBJ on certificate, and it's the only airline in Bermuda.
Great. Simon, how's business at Qatar? Qatar's going through a rough time at the moment.
Qatar as a location, yes, with the blockade, is tricky because a lot of countries that we can't fly over or fly to. That said, 2019 versus 2018, we had small growth, around about 12%, combined with the fact that we had around about 4 new aircraft deliveries. It was quite a tall ask because every new aircraft we get online, we always joke that it's snowing aircraft in Doha. Because we basically get a whole new delivery of aircraft, and we have to find effectively another 100 hours a month for each aircraft as they come on board. Hopefully the blockade will end soon, which will give us basically more scope. We had 3 years ago, before the blockade started, we had about 300 hours a month from GCC, and when it commenced, we then went straight down to 2. So we've had to really look for business elsewhere, being basically Europe, Far East, and some from the US as well.
So when I wanted to do it in order of excitement to base, I found it quite hard to split between Doha and Miami, and I'm having the same thing with Shannon and Bournemouth. Which one of you would like to go next?
It's got to be Bournemouth. Oh, why, thank you, Graham. I'm 4 months into the role, so still finding my way. Gama are now truly a global company, so thankfully we go a little bit further afield than Bournemouth. But I would say stable but challenging is my early viewpoint on the whole thing. Gama has certainly diversified since I knew of them many, many years ago, and that's creating the stability. The side of the industry that we're all here to talk about is probably the one which has got the greatest fluctuation.
And how big's the Gama Air Europe fleet, roughly?
It's sitting at about 40 aeroplanes within what we're looking at from the air side. Globally, when you look at the other activities we have, it's over 200. The diversification comes within the special mission, multi-mission, air ambulance operations that were established and growing as well.
Graham, you are establishing Sonas in Ireland.
That's correct. So what can I say about our glamorous location? It's very wet. The west of Ireland is a glorious place. What I would say, in all seriousness, is in terms of its opportunity and its scale, it's the reason we're in Ireland, because Ireland is in the heart of Europe and will remain in the heart of Europe. So, we'll be providing services to all of our friends and colleagues from around the whole of Europe. So, in terms of our fleet size, our first aircraft was delivered today. So we have 1.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And I should say, just as a point of order, it's currently in Bournemouth with Gama. And if it's not out on time, Marwan will pay.
I'll pass that on to him.
But it's consensus. Operators always complain how hard your job is. Is it tough at the moment? Is it worse this year than it was last year?
Worse?
Sorry.
I mean, Simon took one of my pilots. But other than that, I think it's the usual. I mean, even we're only 6 years old, and I remember my team would say, "Oh my God, it seems more challenging this year." And I'm like, "Well, it really isn't. It's 3 issues per airplane per week per month, right? So it seems like we got all these. It's the same thing. In my opinion, I think it's pretty consistent. All our clients are the same. The trips are the same. I don't know if it's last year with all the upgrades and everything, that was a little bit different and challenging. But other than that, I think it's pretty consistent.
Yeah, from our perspective, we're fighting a lot more for the business. The challenge we have, as well as the amount of positioning we have to do sometimes, given that we can't overfly many countries, it doesn't always make us the most competitive on the market, so we have to look at whether or not we basically write that off from the bottom line to begin with. We are looking more and more to try and push the empty legs, basically because that's one of our biggest costs. But then we also have to be careful, being part of Qatar Airways, the whole brand side, the perception of we don't want to be seen. If it was up to me, I'd be anything is better than nothing because the cost goes on to the next job. But we have to make sure that we're positioning ourselves right in the market for that side.
Graham, you've been doing this a long time. Do you think the market's getting worse, or has it just stayed the same for the last 10 years?
I think expectation has changed. I think when I joined this industry 16, 17 years ago, it wasn't quite the commodity it's become. So I think from a management, particularly traditional management companies in Europe, pre-Lehman's, back in the day, there was lots of growth, lots of excitement, and clients were valued what we did, and with the greatest respect, many still do, but not all do. And the commoditization is one of our biggest challenges, because this is not about price, it's about quality, and it's about trust and relationships and delivering service. But unfortunately, it is a competitive market now, and there's so that's made it harder. As I'm sure we'll talk about, that's driven down the sort of fees and charges that we can enjoy, which subsequently makes it harder and harder to provide the service. So it's a bit of a spiral.
So Brian, you've been in the industry a long time, but on the other side, I don't know whether you're a poacher turned gamekeeper or a gamekeeper turned poacher, but you've moved from the selling aircraft to the management. Do you see which is the hardest role?
Well, my background selling aeroplanes, I find that a lot easier than the challenges that are now faced within the management world. I was quite surprised at the degradation in the values of management contracts. Seemingly there is a little bit of a race to the bottom, and decisions have got to be made on whether you continue with that race or you stand your ground. We provide a professional service, and agreeing with Graham's comment, I think it's somewhat undervalued and sometimes seen as an unnecessary addition to the whole process.
Simon, are you part of the problem? Because I could fly much more cheaply from London to Miami today on Qatar than, Graham, I could if it was my own aircraft. Would you agree, Graham?
Yes, I would, marginally.
Yeah, it's, I mean, what we're looking to do is we're trying to grow the fleet. I've spent a little bit of time in my previous career in aircraft management, so I understand what these guys go through. We're a bit privileged from the fact that we're basically given all these new aircraft. We've got the support of the mainline airline for moving pilots around, engineers around, parts around if we need to. And at the end of the day, we're trying to keep the fleet floating. We'd really never bring them back to Doha unless any maintenance, which is done in-house.
But, the service is great. The product's good. It's a brand new aircraft. I'm not being sponsored by Qatar. It's a brand new aircraft, or very new, great, the airline ethos. Graham, the cost of, if you put in the depreciation and the financing cost of me buying an aircraft, it would be a lot more than taking a block charter. Graham, would you agree?
Well, first of all, I was going to have a question for everybody because we need to try and stay awake. And a lot of people are tired. The reason you're tired is because you've been sleeping in a hotel room. And you're looking forward to getting home because when you're at home, you'll sleep properly. And you'll be with your family. And you'll be in a familiar place. That's what we provide. An aircraft is an extension of your home, your office, or your bedroom. It is not something that you rent for the night. Obviously, you can. And I'm sure there are wide ranges of hotels available. I'm in a very cheap Z hotel around the corner because it's cheap and we're trying to save money as a startup. And that you get the point. There are different products and services, and what we do as an industry, and I mean aviation, is offer choice. And as long as there are people that have earned the right to enjoy a Rolls-Royce and a Patek Philippe watch and a private jet, then we will still exist. In all of our forms.
But in the context of your question, it was, is he providing a better product for a cheaper service because he's subsidized versus?
I didn't say subsidized.
Well, I did, and I, because it's true. Then I'll have a G550 aircraft owner who has an expectation, right, and it has to go out for a certain price. And it's not just you. If I'm up against someone else, even if it's a repo, that makes it a little bit challenging because it makes more sense to go with you than it would with my aircraft owner's airplane. So I think that makes it a little bit challenging to be able to compete fairly if everyone is working off of different parameters where every product is not exactly the same, right?
I think what's interesting is the US market's been growing in the last, US, to many of the people in the room, they look at the US market and they go, it would be lovely to have that market, to have the demand. But when we have you all together in Miami, it's just as competitive. You all moan about pilot salaries too high, competition, management fees. Is it just something fundamentally wrong with the industry?
No, I just think when things are going well, everybody wants to be in it. So it's at a bigger scale. I think in the US, compared to other parts of the world, people celebrate success. And if you have an aircraft, you can depreciate the whole thing in 1 year. So if you made $50 million, buy yourself an airplane, don't pay taxes, right? Write it off. We bought our own airplane for that same reason. It just made perfect sense. Normally, I would never be interested in an airplane, but the CFO sat down and said, if we do this, we could write it off and depreciate it in 7 years, write it off in the first year, so it made sense. And I think a lot of people are doing this, which is why in the US it looks great. The G4 market is totally dried up. Every airplane has been sold. People are desperate looking for airplanes or used aircraft, and it's kind of now a little bit more challenging to find than years ago. But I think it's because of that, because we do celebrate aviation, and we do celebrate success, and we think it's a great thing for people to move around private if they make it, or if they have a successful business or whatever it is. But it is challenging because there are a lot of people doing the same thing we're doing, and it is what I call the race to zero margin between all the operators, whether it's on a charter that you're trying to sell. They'll come and say, someone else has a better rate, can you cut yours by $5,000, $6,000, $7,000? And at the end of the day, it's like, I can, but what is left for us? The broker may wind up making more money than we did, and we have all the risk and responsibility as the operator.
Which came down first, the charter rate or the management rate?
Oh, charter yields collapsed. And that was for a very obvious reason, supply and demand. So back in the good old days, 2004, 5, 6, our top 10, when I was working at TAG, we had our own aircraft, we had our own fleet. I think we still had 9 or 10 aircraft left. And our top 10 charter customers in Switzerland, 8 of them bought aircraft. So now you have 8 aircraft added into the market in this case, though many of those owners said, well, when I'm not using the jet, you can sell some charter. Who to? You just bought a jet. So twice as many aircraft, half as many customers. We were getting, on the Falcon 900s out of Geneva, we were getting 14,000 francs an hour. Within 3 years, we were getting 9.5. So that was first. Then there was a lot of aircraft management companies, and so that collapsed as well.
I mean, there are many management companies that'll do zero management fee as long as they get to charter.
One of the interesting things I think, though, is that we've just asked the audience if there are too many operators, and 69% think yes. And I'm thinking, Graham, you think we should stop today. No one knew from today.
Especially in Ireland.
But if you think in the last 10 years, we've seen a few Zeta jets, a few Ocean Skies go under, but not maybe as many as you'd expect. And in that time, we've had so many others, and a little bit of consolidation. You've bought Longtail, we've seen ExecuJet, we've seen Lux, but there hasn't been a fundamental change. Is the industry ever going to change, Brian?
Well, it was quite promising to hear some of the comments today from the charter discussion, where people believe it's time to start standing the ground back to value for money. We're making a decision to target a specific client base as we go forward. We've excelled as a company in service delivery, which has been learned over the years from the other diversifications. And I think we've possibly lagged in that over the last few years. And so it's the realization internally that we will target a specific audience with a specific product and give them the best service that we can. So that's us going towards a niche rather than just trying to take any business that comes by. So you may see a variation in our fleet, but it's done for a specific reason. We want to create stability. It is quite worrying with all of the smaller management companies. You start to hear rumors of insurance not being paid, trying to rob Peter to pay Paul. Our responsibility is risk mitigation for the owner. And I do think you have to have a fair structure behind you to be able to do that.
These rumours, though, aren't new. And we've had, 5 years ago, someone would say, have you heard about X? They're doing a management fee based on guaranteeing 500 hours of charter, for nothing. And nothing's changed. That's, I think, Graham, do you think there's a fundamental problem?
I think, and there was a question there, I think we're all aware that there are people with business models that just do not practically work on paper. Most recently, I heard of a management company who are offering full management for €3,500 a month. Well, I've just set up a brand new AOC, a full commercial EASA AOC in Ireland, and I'll be around later to discuss it with anybody who wants to, but I know what it cost. And to run a full commercial AOC in Ireland, there is a fixed and variable cost per month just to sustain that AOC. So on that fee level, I need to get 37 aircraft pretty quickly. And that's with the minimum requirement for staff. Anybody got 37 aircraft? So it just doesn't work. It's not possible. And anybody who thinks they can place their $50 million asset with someone that's going to provide them all the services and the security, the support, the comfort, the safety, and the NetJets presentation was really critical today, you can't do it for €3,500.
Thoughts?
We're in a slightly different market. And, to looking at the question earlier, Qatar Executive was born out of it wasn't born originally as an actual business to compete. We've got quite strict instructions. Everything is run from the very top with regards to holding our rate. It was really originally formed to basically to cater for the government and royal family. Out of that, we got a lot of the clients that we have tend to use the aircraft like their own. They will take it for probably a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks. They will give us the first part of the itinerary and then feed us on a daily basis to where that aircraft is going. So it's almost, they treat it like their own. They could probably have their own aircraft, but they tend to use, we only have long-range fleet, basically G650, G500, we have some globals as well, and then eventually a couple of years' time, the G700 as well. So we have to keep those, first of all, we have to keep those aircraft, so we're not trying to compete with the shorter hops within Europe. Our average live flight time is about 5 hours, and we just, when the aircraft ends up down route, we're looking for the next hop to get us back on that longer hop. So the intention is not to, do we have it easier than most operators? The previous operator, I was always concerned about bringing crew back from the US was another huge cost factor for me, which is why I try and educate the charter sales team now as to this is a luxury that we have that supports our business. It's not the normal modus operandi for most operators.
So let's talk about people and finding and hiring people, because Simon, I know you're taking another 5 pilots from Fabian next week. You mentioned earlier. Are you all finding it hard to find good pilots and mechanics and other team members?
I'd say the biggest challenge is on engineering at the moment. The OEMs are investing significantly in their own facilities, specifically here in the UK, and that's setting quite high expectations and levels, clearly very attractive, and it makes a challenge for everybody else.
Just reading the actual question, we always try and find attractive crew. But anyway, so to be honest, I think the issue with crew is that crew want to work for companies that provide them with a level of security, that provide them with a good working environment, and that will support them when the difficult questions come up from the owners. So we're very privileged, that there are pilots who have reached out to us, and I don't think, but globally, are we investing enough in the future and encouraging millennials to do anything other than design apps? Do they want to be engineers and pilots? Well, I hope so. But yeah, there's going to be a problem, and it certainly is one that I would like from a BBGA perspective, and I'm on the board of the BBGA. We do need to find ways to bring people into the industry for practical reasons, not just fluffy stuff. And what we need to try and work together to bring pilots in.
No, it's definitely a challenge for us as well. I mean, I think we've been pretty lucky, even in looking at our turnover rate, it's pretty steady, but it's because we want to provide a nice environment that's family-oriented, that people want to come and be part of. We have lost some pilots to some great paying jobs, and I know I made the joke earlier, but what he got was substantially more, and these pilots that do leave for these types of jobs, they leave through, open doors with a big hug and out they go. And if anything goes wrong, they'll most certainly be welcomed back. But it is challenging because as the shortage comes on, supply, short demand, these guys are going to want to make more, and it does get tougher for the operator, particularly if not 100% of all your pilot costs are passed on to an aircraft owner. So we're running it a little bit like an airline, at least with several aircraft. We're the ones that are carrying that, and at one point, if the charter rates are going down but our costs are going up, it's just not going to align. So that is a potential problem that we see in the horizon.
Do we have any questions from the room? Okay, let's do some quick fire, because in about 10 minutes this room has to be empty. Technology. 10 years ago, there were a lot of promises about technology changing your business, making life easier. Has it lived up to its promises?
As far as apps to book and what have you,
and make your business management easier and...
No, at the end of the day, I think this is a very labor-intensive type of environment. You're not going to Uber an aircraft over. There are way too many moving parts. There are way too many people that have to be involved. I just never saw it, and it didn't come together. Do we have some software that can make some things a little bit simpler or what have you? Yeah, we're not faxing each other a contract anymore. But other than that, I think at the end, our business is just the nature of the business, no different than a house where you have a butler and a housekeeper and a chef, and you're still going to have those people. It doesn't matter how many apps come out.
God, you're living a different life than most of us.
I didn't say it was my life.
It's a tough life operating aircraft. Like, sometimes your butler's ill.
I honestly think I've had far too long really to try and build a new AOC. But you start with a blank piece of paper, and after 40 years, you've learned a few things. And the thing I've found the most fascinating is, and I'm old-fashioned, but we have no network servers, everything's on the cloud, everything talks to each other. In my previous life, we used to employ 3 people to type the same data into 3 different bits of software. So that, simple things. I mean, the big change for me is that you can employ quality people and not just, people punching buttons. And therefore, technology has made a huge difference. So we can be customer focused, not just, technically focused. So it's been remarkable.
What's the, here's a really nice quick question. Anyone can jump in. What's the optimal number of aircraft for an operator to make money?
In our environment, and they're all different, but in our environment, I think the sweet spot is around 25 to 30 max, because you can't give the level of service and have a personal relationship if you go way beyond that.
Brian, would you like to disagree with that?
No, not really at all. I always smile at Graham. That's why I had the stupid look on my face. Our business model is different, so we don't need to chase high numbers because of the rest of the how we run the rest of the business. I would suggest somewhere probably between 10 and 20, in my opinion.
Yeah, we made a substantial profit with 15. I think 20 is probably our deal. Sweet spot, 20 plus, yeah.
And yours is as many as you get given?
Well, hopefully not. No, we're geared to do 30, and that hopefully we'll hold it there.
Okay. Any questions from the room? Final question. is the next 10 years going to be better for operators than the last 10 years?
It depends if Bernie Sanders wins or not.
I think yes. You've got to always think positive. Otherwise, you may as well, hand the keys to them now.
I genuinely think it will. I really do.
I think exciting times ahead, very positive from the outlook for aircraft sales. Somebody's got to run the aeroplane, so I think it is an opportunity for the operators.
And on that cheery bombshell, thank you very much.